Let's talk about something more appealing, global stocks. Those prices are higher this morning as investors continue to bet on U.S. tax reform. Flynn, Zito Capital Management co-founder Doug Flynn joining me now. Hey, Doug, good to see you.
Good morning, Lauren. How are you?
All right. We're obviously looking at futures this morning, bracing for a Santa Claus rally. Can anything derail that, i.e., a government shutdown?
I don't think so. I don't think the government shutdown would really do much to even halt this. If we finish December positively with a positive month, it'll actually mark the first time in history that for a calendar year, every single month we had a positive return in the S&P. So I think that momentum still builds. Manufacturing is good. There's some other good things that are coming. Tax reform is the least that's going to give us positive results.
It's really incredible. Speaking of the S&P, what did we close Friday at 2675? J.P. Morgan sees it going to 3,000 by the end of next year.
Yes, we would agree with that. 3,000, even possibly 3,100, yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, and they also made a note that investors now should be focusing and going out of the growth stocks that they may have been invested in and more into value stocks, particularly domestic stocks.
Yeah, I could agree with that. You've had a run on growth has been up about 30%. Value stocks only up about 13%. The Dow and the S&P are in the 20s. So growth has outrun value, and it tends to normalize and come back. So that wouldn't surprise me if you had a cycling back into value stocks. But we still like internationals. I wouldn't discount that over U.S. They're still undervalued relative to the U.S. But being diversified, that's what this is all about. And having both of those are part of getting the most from your portfolio.
Right. Let's talk about Bitcoin. Bubble, volatile, some of the words that could be used to describe it. Futures did begin trading last week on the CBOE, yesterday on the CME. Your thoughts about Bitcoin in general?
So the issue for us is because we have clients calling us, can I get Bitcoin? It's not traded in a way that people like us, registered investment advisors, can purchase on an open exchange. So ETFs are in line to come out. That will open that up. A lot of this early speculation is exactly that. You have to go into these other places where, one day if you log in and there's nothing there, who are you going to call? It's not as regulated as it's going to be once it's out there in a trading way where we can all take advantage of it. And unfortunately, a lot of that might mean that the prices run up before we get a chance to actually get average investors involved in a meaningful way, in a registered way.
But does the trading of the futures lend it legitimacy?
I mean, it's one step in a long line of legitimacy. That's usually the first step. Then there'll be some ETFs. Then they'll be people to get into it. But let's put in the big perspective. Even if you count this as a real currency, currency for most people's portfolios is never really more than 3% of their entire portfolio anyway. You just don't put that much into it because most people hardly understand the moves of a stock market or the stocks on a day-to-day basis, let alone what currency and Bitcoin's doing. Why did it go from 18,000 to 20,000? You can't explain it, then you also won't understand why it went back down when one day when that happens.
Yet you have these incredibly bullish, maybe psychotic investors saying it's going to 400,000. What do you make of that? And then bolstering the argument with the fact that, well, there's just not going to be enough supply out there to meet all the demand, which is going to push up the price.
I mean, to me, currencies, and if that's what you want to consider this also an alternate currency, are not investments. They don't have underlying earnings. They don't have growth aspects. They're more of a trade. They're more of a commodity that has a place when you for a piece of your portfolio. It's not an underlying investment that you're going to hold for a long, long term. So anything can happen, and it can go up, and it will go down, and it will get more volatile the higher it goes.
Got it. Doug, so good to see you. Thank you for joining us this morning.
You too, Lauren. Thanks.